Episode 408. I'm going to talk about, what I talked about this morning on 360 Good Morning Wrestling Fans, but unfortunately nobody got to hear because of a mistake right here, right now. 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Hello, Wrestling Fanatics. Welcome to episode 408 of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Thank you for tuning in tonight, right here on Spreaker, or whichever website or podcast app you are listening to on. As I mentioned in that little preview, it's 360 Wrestling Fanatic, but in a way it's kind of like a makeup for this morning's Good Morning Wrestling Fans, where I recorded it on my walk to work, as usual, just as I do every day. Thought it went pretty well, but then just when I was about to stop the recording on the Spreaker app, I noticed that somehow the mic got muted, so that show I just recorded was recorded just dead air. So I thought I didn't have the time to record the whole episode over again this morning. So I just did that quick 1 minute and some seconds, however long it was, episode real quick this morning. So I thought I'd do this episode tonight of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, which will be pretty much the same stuff I talked about on GMWF this morning, which nobody was able to hear. So, to start things off, what I talked about was the WWE Draft, the newest version of the brand split, I guess you could say, and so far I'm a little disappointed in it. I'm not trying to be too negative or too hard on it like some of the pro wrestling podcasts and some of the hosts out there can be, but I definitely not really a fan of it so far, and I don't know if I would go as far to say that they are ruining it just yet, but it definitely hasn't been great. I know I've said this a million times already about this 2023 version of the brand split, but it was with this new Raw World Heavyweight Championship, where when Triple H first introduced it, he said it was talking about being this exclusive Raw Championship, and the tournament matches to decide the first champion are on SmackDown, and which we saw the SmackDown half of the tournament, AJ Styles win, and he will go on to Night of Champions this Saturday to face Seth freaking Rollins. And they haven't actually explained, or at least maybe I missed it if they have, if AJ Styles does win this Raw Championship, if that means he will be moved over from Friday Night SmackDown over to Monday Night Raw. And also, if AJ Styles is moved over, since the OC Styles, the Good Brothers, and Meech and Mia Yim were drafted as a package over to SmackDown, does that mean they're going to go with AJ Styles as well? Some things do need to be explained there. And also the tag team title situation, which before, yes, the men's tag team titles and the women's tag team titles were defended on both shows, and the champions who had the titles, both of them were drafted to Monday Night Raw. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, and at the time, Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. And they didn't actually really explain this, if that was going to remain where the championships were defended on both shows. And also, say if, Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan, Owens and Zayn, if they lose the titles, if they just go back to being exclusive on Raw, or what will happen. But speaking of the women's tag team champions, Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan, due to the shoulder injury of Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan had to vacate the women's tag team titles, but Raquel Rodriguez will be able to have a partner to face off in this four-way match to determine the new women's tag team champions. And her partner will be Shotzi Blackheart, taking the place of Liv Morgan. And so, I know though, maybe I'm just being nitpicky, but so far those are some of the reasons why I am really not a big fan of this version of the brand split so far. And also, this morning on GMWF, today's episode, I talked about a sad anniversary. Today, May 23rd, 24 years ago, was the WWF Over the Edge pay-per-view, which was the passing of Owen Hart due to the tragic accident. And luckily, Owen Hart, his legend, has lived on in pro wrestling. His family have started the Owen Hart Foundation, and last year in AEW was the first ever Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament, a men's tournament and a women's tournament, which last year was won by, the men's tournament was won by Adam Cole, the women's tournament won by Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and this year the tournament is returning to AEW, and I believe it's going to start at Double or Nothing this Sunday, and the finals of the tournament will take place in the hometown of Owen Hart, Calgary, Alberta, at the Saddle Dome, I believe is the venue, and it's going to be an episode of the new show, AEW Saturday Collision. So it will be interesting to see this year who will be the winners of the men and women's tournament. So it is good that even though his family doesn't want his name or his legacy to have anything to do with WWE. It can still be involved in pro wrestling somehow. And I'm looking forward to this tournament again this year to honor the memory of Owen. Definitely hard to believe it has been 24 years ago now. So that's all for tonight's episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, which, like I said, was kind of a makeup episode for the mistake I made somehow this morning while recording GMWF. It looks like the microphone is on right now recording, and this one should be okie dokie. But I hope to have more episodes of 360 Wrestling Fanatic this week. Tomorrow night recapping AEW Dynamite. And we got the big pro wrestling weekend coming up. And I will be back tomorrow morning for the Wednesday episode of GMWF. Fingers crossed that everything will go well, as I will be previewing tomorrow night's episode of AEW Dynamite, when Tony Khan is supposed to announce the location of the very first episode of AEW Saturday Collision. And it's been speculated that it could be Chicago at the United Center because of all the rumors about this guy, what's his name? CM Punk. You may have heard of him, about maybe him showing back up in AEW. Who knows if that is true, but I'm sure if it is announced that the first episode of Saturday Collision will be taking place in Chicago at the United Center, then yes, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet that there's a good chance we could see him return, but we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. Once again, tomorrow, GMWF, the Wednesday episode. Also, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or anything you want to say, you can leave them right here in the comments section on Spreaker or whichever website or podcast app you are listening on. If you have a product or a business or any kind of company you want to advertise, you can. I'll advertise for you, help you out right here on 360 Wrestling Podcast, Wrestling Fanatic, and GMWF. I'll try to do a good read for you, not mess up. So don't worry, I'll try my best. I hope we can work something out. Email me 360wrestlingpodcasts@gmail.com. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Talk to you tomorrow for Good Morning Wrestling fans. But until then, I am Lance and I am a wrestling fanatic.